Alright, about to start a new sculpt, and I'm doing it a little bit early today since I've been up really early today. um, because I had to run over to the airport. So I will be starting in just a minute. Alright, here we go. So we are going to start this as usual here with our sphere. And this is pretty much how I start all my bases. So let me grab my tablet and get this started. So I did one the other day that was like a grumpy dog carve, and that one's currently being printed, and I should have that print assembled probably by Wednesday or Thursday, which is good because it takes about a day and a half to get one side done, and then I'm going to print the other side after that and then join them together, and then I'll be able to make casts from that very, very soon. But for now, I'm just making new sculpts so I can have them ready to go. So when the printer is done, I can just pop in the next model that I want to print. No, I'm not going to airbrush them. Well, when they're furred and everything, but no, none of these sculpts are all going to stay a single color, at least on the computer. I'm not going to color them in the computer. I'm going to make casts that eventually are going to be casted in foam. So the 3D print itself is not going to get painted. Yes, they're for fursuits. These are very, very large. Alrighty. So I like to do the muzzle in two parts. I'm going to add another polysphere. Let's move that one out. And I started this one very similar the other day. To kind of give yourself an idea what we're going to do. This one's going to start very similar to the one I did the other day. But this one's going to be a toonier, happier dog carve that I want to do, or sculpt. Keep calling them carves, but they're actually sculpts. So this is going to be the upper muzzle. Push this one down a little bit. And then we're going to make the bottom muzzle, which I usually just duplicate this one. And right now everything's going to start out really basic. It's just to kind of have the idea of upper muzzle and a lower muzzle. And one thing I did say last time, which is really important, is rename your objects. You will be much happier when you do this, especially when they look somewhat the same at first. And you can see it is very, very, very basic right now. I'm going to change this to my favorite color, which is red on here. A lot easier to see everything. So there's a couple of tools that I use a lot. And one of them is the move brush. So if you don't know where it is, when you look into this menu, just press M for move, and you can find it right there. And this circle, as you can see, there's two little dots that keep popping up every time I move my mouse. It just means that I have symmetry turned on. So there you go. If I turn it off, which I'm going to press X right now, you see one dot, which means everything I do on this side is not going to show up on that side because symmetry is turned off. But I like to work with symmetry on, so X. Here we go. So let's start moving this muzzle a bit so we can start shaping it. Hello, Domino Bear. And it's okay that there's intersecting geometry currently because we're going to remesh this thing, and once it's remeshed, it won't matter because it'll get rid of all the intersecting geometry. Good morning, Matt. So if you were here for the last one, you'll see that this is starting very, very similar. Kind of looks like a duck at first. And I'm just using the move brush. And when I press shift, the smooth brush activates. So you'll see me doing that back and forth, back and forth. I'm doing all this with a little tablet. Makes it a whole lot easier. And then that way I can have all my shortcuts on my keyboard. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I started with two spheres. Well, three spheres. Because I have the main sphere for the head, which is just the basic thing that I start with. And then I started with the upper sphere and the lower sphere. And you just use the transform tool, which you can see right here. This one, I mean the transpose tool. And then that one, you can use it to resize it, move it around, and just kind of shove it into the main ball. And then you just use the move brush and you start adjusting it however you want, really. Do a lot of pushing and pulling. So to me, this is like the most basic way of starting this and explaining it. And if you've never done 3D, I think it personally makes sense. Because to me, it's very much like working with clay or even foam work, where you do all the pieces separately. So the bottom here, I want to move this. So when you're working on the different parts, you can see they kind of glow a little bit different. They'll be a little bit lighter, so that way you know which one you're working on. So I'm going to go on the lower one, and you can see that the color changed. Push it, and then eventually you're going to lose information, and you'll see. Some of the the little squares here that you see are going to get stretched out, and you're going to literally run out of info, but you can keep dividing the surface texture, the surface, and you can give it a bit more info when you press divide. I'll show you how to do that because we will be running into that issue soon-ish. Right now I'm just kind of giving it the sorta-ish look that I want, and then I can go in and start refining it. But currently I'm pretty much just using the move brush to move stuff around, stretch it, squish it, until I get the look that I want. And I want to make a happy dog this time because I need a new happy dog mold. My current one is not doing so well, so I would like to do a new one. So it's looking slightly less like a duck now. But I want this bottom muzzle, bottom jaw of the muzzle, I guess, bottom jaw, rotated and opened a little bit. And this way we are going to grab the transpose or transpose smart. They're pretty much like the same thing. One's, I think, a little bit better. And we're just going to rotate it. And then kind of push it. So again, the geometry is intersecting currently. You can't see it because it's in here, but it is. Now we're going to go use the flatten brush. If you forget what it is, just click on F when you're here in the tool menu. I'm just kind of flattening the inside of the mouth. Then going back in and using the smooth brush by pressing shift. I resize my brush a lot depending on how much I want to move at the same time. And because these parts are in different layers, you can see it here, upper muzzle, I can work on it without affecting everything else. If they were in one layer and I was worried about it affecting the other parts, I would have to divide it out by using the masking tool. But being in different layers, I can do this a lot quicker. See, I'm just kind of pushing it in there. And we won't worry about the back of the head because this literally gets cut off. And the nose will be done as a separate piece as well. Easier for me to work with it. So you can see over here that a lot of stuff is already pretty stretched. And a lot of this stuff is going to lose information if I keep doing this, and it's just going to create some funky stuff. So if we need more information to work on the surface, because eventually you're going to stretch it to the point that you're going to need more info, we're going to go in here into geometry, because this is your geometry, and then let's make sure that you're clicking on the right layer, and then you press divide. And it added more information, so you can go in and continue sculpting without the stuff being so stretched out and looking funky. So you can continue dividing as much as you want. It's just going to make the mesh more dense. And the more dense it gets, the harder it is on your computer. So just make sure that you're taking that into account if you're working on a slower computer and an older computer. It's just more information to process. But because I have these divided into separate sections, I can just add more information up here, and I don't have to completely change the sphere for the head just yet. Let's see, now I want to build the eyebrow area. And we want to, I would like to, not you. I would like to add some large eyebrows over here and build up on it. Make sure that we are on the right subtool, which is the main sphere. Kind of start where you would like these eyebrows to go. And you can see that I'm already kind of exceeding the, I guess the mesh quality over here. So it looks like it's wanting to clip here, and there's a lot of sharp areas. So we're going to divide this area as well. So we have more information to work with this geometry, which would be this sphere. Divide it, see, and it immediately gives me more information, which is good. And then I can go in and I can continue adding, and if I need to do it again, I will. And it's pretty much up to you how much you want to add to it. Go back in and then kind of clean up. So I'm going to build up the cheek area from here. This is literally the same way I do things in foam. The way I build my 3D stuff is very similar to the way I build my foam heads in parts, and very much in the same kind of order, where I build the upper and the lower muzzle, and then I add the cheeks and then the eyebrows. So with the clay buildup tool, I'm literally just throwing clay on the actual sculpt and building it up. And it comes out kind of chunky, and that's okay, because this is just kind of roughing the shape in there. And because we have symmetry clicked on, it's going to happen on both sides at the same time. Just go back, pressing your shift, button and it will smooth out the area. For now, these parts are going to look separated because they are separated, so it's not going to look like it's one piece. But we want to kind of get this somewhat looking like what we want, and then we'll join it. And I'll show you how to join it. When you do this with a tablet, it's a lot easier than a mouse. You just have more control. Try to just do large strokes and kind of get everything where you sort of want it to go. And that way you can go back in and then give it all the detailing. If I get quiet and you see my avatar moving its mouth, it's because I'm eating. I just try to turn on off the microphone so this doesn't turn into some ASMR stream. The current print's coming along really, really well. I'm super happy with that printer. It just works. And Kira has been amazing to work with as well, since you can control everything on that program. So I definitely recommend that. And that half should be done by tomorrow. As I said, it was going to take about a day and a couple hours, so for the half. Because I like dividing them in half because I am printing with like 1 kilo spools. And I just rather have half and half, and then that way I can see how much is being used, and if I want to change it and I want to do both halves a different color, I can. It just gives me more options. Plus I can make the head way bigger if I print half and half. So this brush here, called the Dam Standard, I use it a lot. A lot. Because it cuts into the clay itself. And right now, like I said, I'm keeping it kind of just, everything's kind of quick and dirty to give me an idea on where I want things placed so I can go back in and clean them up. And then flatten. You can use this brush, kind of flatten this area. Even though I'll add another sphere in a minute for the eyes. Just flattening it a bit. And the intensity for the smooth brush, it's at 100%, but I'm going to lower it so it doesn't smooth everything so quickly. Cool. So all the brushes that you keep using, they'll pop up here on the top because the program can tell that you're using them a lot. So they're in your quick pick section. So you can kind of see the shapes there. I'm going to build up this bottom cheek area a little bit more, and then we are going to join these pieces. All right, those look pretty good. But actually, before I do that, I'm going to increase this a little bit more. And the bottom one, I'm going to increase it as well. So let's go back to subtool. I'm going to pick the head, which is currently picked. And I'm going to divide it again, get a little bit more detail. And I'm going to divide the bottom. Perfect. So now, let me do a quick save. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to join all these. I'm going to merge them. I'm going to merge down. Okay. And then I'm going to merge down again. And I'm going to do okay. So now all the parts are joined. But there's still like intersecting geometry. It's still messy in there. And you won't be able to join this part at all. So we have to remesh the whole thing right here. So you see the subtool, you go here on the bottom and it says remesh all. It's usually clicked like this and you see remesh, and then you can up the resolution if you want, you can up the polish, and then you can do remesh all. And right now it's all joined, which is great. So this is how ZBrush sees things, and then just kind of creates its own mesh and kind of looks like weird watery ripply effect, but that's okay, it doesn't really matter. And it creates a new skin. So you have your old skin there, and then you have your new skin. And now you can go in and you can actually build on it. So make sure you press X. And now you can see that your symmetry is activated. And now when I build on stuff, it joins the pieces together because it's acting as a one thing. The mesh is now connected. And because I'm still building on top of it, it doesn't matter if it has that ripply effect because I'm going to get rid of it anyways by building on top and smoothing and doing everything I need to do. But yeah, that's how I start off these these sculpts with intersecting geometry and making it look all weird. And then I just remesh it and go in here and pretty much continue adding clay until I get the shape that I want. And that way you can get the shape that you're looking for without spending too much time doing it. And the nose, I'm going to keep it in a separate layer because I usually never blend that one in until the end when I'm going to export this out as an OBJ. But the nose usually stays in its own layer. Let's start smoothing it. building up the clay. I'm gonna flatten this bottom area too. I like my heads to be a bit more angular around the cheeks, so I flatten these areas. If you see my brush turn blue, it's because I'm smoothing. And smooth all those out. Make them disappear. Go back to my move tool. I'm gonna use the inflate brush to inflate some areas over here, such as the eyebrows and this cheek area as well. So the inflate doesn't add stuff like the clay buildup does, it just literally inflates the area. add some meat down here to this because it's a little thin. I usually don't. I just happen to be awake today because I had to leave my boyfriend at the airport pretty early. And I was doing some early work today, so I decided, hey, why not? I can start on my next sculpt that I want to work on. Because I got to do, well, I started it, but I got to finish up the large, large cat sculpt. I just haven't completely finished it yet, but I felt like doing the toony dog one right now. But yeah, if people want to see these streams in the morning, I can definitely do them when I'm here on the weekends. I usually do something on one of my weekend days, and then the next weekend day, I usually just do work, so. Yeah, he was traveling for work. He travels for work a lot, so I tend to drop him off at the airport. want to build this nose bridge up. And flatten it up a little bit too. So widen that area a little bit so I can put a larger nose on this one. I think I'm going to build up some here because this looks a little off. It looks a little thin in this area. Using the flatten brush to kind of flatten some areas here and then go back in and see what I need to rebuild. Give this one a big booper too. Some of the smiles are going to be a little bit more indented in there like this, because when you cast them, some detail gets lost, so it's best to make them bigger in the sculpt itself. Yes, they're 3D printed. That's what I'm doing right now with all of these. So anything you see here is, unless I say otherwise, is being 3D printed. So if you were watching the stream the other day and I was doing this grumpy dog, that one's currently being printed. And then after they're printed, I make a silicone mold of them and then a hard shell on the outside, and then I can cast multiple versions of these in foam or resin. I usually cast them in foam. So I usually just shove another sphere in there and I use it for my eyes. It's just so I can see where they are. More for reference. I'm just hiding some little bits that were hanging out because I'm just using this more as a reference thing. I'll delete the intersecting geometry later. And that way I can build up around the eyes and kind of have an idea where they are a little bit better. Yeah, it's actually been amazing to work with this stuff. It helps a lot, especially because I'm technically only working on one side and then the computer takes care of the other. As long as you know how to work the program enough, then definitely it's a really good thing to have. And if you have a big enough printer you can print these sculpts, then yeah, it's an amazing tool to have. And it's less messy. So I'm going to go ahead and add a nose. So we're going to add another sphere. So you can tell that I like to do things with spheres a lot because it makes the most sense for the organic shapes that I'm doing. Let me rename this since I'm going to forget what's what. Eyes. And this is nose. Make sure we press X, activate that symmetry. Flattening the top. I think I'm going to move this one up a little bit. There we go. Since I'm losing a little bit of information. And twist this little guy out. And the noses that go on these heads, I keep them pretty simple since these are foam casts. I'll just make the more detailed nose after that I can slip on and cut off the head if I need to and make it out of resin. And then that way I can have way more detail. What do you mean with hybrids? Ah, hello, Citrus the Fox. Thank you for the follow. I mean, you can sculpt whatever you want in 3D, but the thing is I'm not going to do specific hybrids to do sculpts out of unless it's like a species that's super popular that people really go crazy for. But no, I mean you can, but like I said, for these it's more of a generic species of stuff that I can use over and over again, or be able to alter as I want. Because remember, I'm making molds off of this stuff, so it can't be one specific thing, because that's a lot of time wasted on one character only. Because when you 3D print this stuff, it takes days. When you make the silicone sculpt, it's expensive, it takes a while. So you want all this stuff to be worth your time. So if it's a one-off creature, then it's just going to be just sculpted regular. Just going in and patching up some areas that I thought were a little too thin. Get this smile line to really stand out. So just go back in with the damn standard one and cut into it. And if I cut too much or that sphere inside is showing, I'll just push it in a little bit. Because you want them to be prominent, the smiles, so they really stand out when you end up casting this. Makes it easier for you to know where to put the fur, and I use like the smile lines like right in there and right over here as anchor points when I'm gluing stuff down, so I like to make them a little bit deeper. So I'll make like a line here, because I usually have a seam that goes from the eye here down to there. So I just make those a little more visible. I'm gonna build this area up here. So it's getting there. Definitely need to add more eyebrows here so you have more space to fit your actual head. Make these eyebrows puffier. Puff them up. I'm just gonna smooth these down. Smooth the front down a little bit. Thank you. It's looking doggy. Just going in and flattening some areas and then smoothing them. Get a more defined shape. So I usually don't detail the inside of the mouth at all because this whole area gets cut. But I do add another sphere in the mouth because when I am making these, I'm thinking about casting more than anything, and how easy it is for the foam to pull or not. And if you have a lot of undercuts, the foam likes to get stuck in areas that are not super fun to dig out of, and it can ruin your mold. So I would like to leave the mouth open like this, but I want to play it real safe by doing the thing that I usually do, and I'll show you what it is in a minute. Because even though the suit is going to have an open mouth like so, the actual print doesn't need to have an open mouth. It'll keep its shape, but I'm going to shove something in here. Let's go ahead and add another sphere. Let's add another one. Sphere 3D, and it's in there already. We can get it out. When I use this inside the mouth, and this is so it'll cast a little bit easier for me. Cool, that works. So I'm pretty happy with the shape, but I want to continue adding a little bit more over here. Build up these cheeks a bit more. And after I'm done with this sculpt in ZBrush, I take it to Mesh Mixer and then I prepare it for printing, because you got to do a couple of things. You can't just take it out of ZBrush and call it good. Mesh Mixer actually fixes a lot of issues and makes it actually, I think, easier to print it without errors. So I use 3 programs to print. I use this one to make the object, which is ZBrush, and then I take it into Mesh Mixer. I fix my files to make sure everything looks okay, and I can print it without an issue. And then I take it into Cura, and Cura is the one that reads the information and then passes it over to my printer. Mesh Mixer and Cura are free. ZBrush is not. But if you have Blender, then you can technically do all this that I'm doing for free. And if you have any questions about this program or just general 3D printing or doing any of this stuff in ZBrush, just ask away. The way I sculpt these is with the intention of actually printing. It's not for animating, it's not for anything else, because the way I'm doing this is definitely not the right way to create a character that you would use for animation. Yes, I post all my my rewatch streams whenever the streams are okay enough for me to post. So I just did 2 of the Grumpy Dog. Hopefully, I don't know if the stream has been buffering like crazy or anything like that. I tried to lower everything down to like 720, so my connection wasn't so bogged with it, and I think my poor computer was not taking it very well. Been good to me? Good, good. Okay, cool. Because I know I was having microphone issues, but that was because my microphone was junk. And then I got this new wireless one, and I'm really happy with it. It's super easy. I don't get tangled in my microphone. And it's also, you know, my earphones and stuff. But yeah, I definitely want to post all these up on YouTube, especially because Twitch does not keep them up forever. So this one will be posted up when I am done with this. Because the one that I did for the Grumpy Dog, sadly, half of the stream, like the first hour, was fine. And then it just got really chunky. And I didn't really realize that until well after I was done. And I was like, oh no. So I still uploaded it to kind of give people a heads up that I am going to upload these on YouTube. But hopefully lowering some specs here and there should be better on my connection. I don't know. I think Spectrum is just junk, but that's what I got. I'm curious, is it possible to do something similar in Sculptress, or is the program too simplistic? No, you can do stuff very, very similar. So you can see here on the top, activate Sculptress Pro mode. So they have their own version. So if you come in here with the knowledge of Sculptress, you'll be able to do a whole lot of stuff, which is really nice because Sculptress is very simple. But you can definitely do a lot of stuff in Sculptress. Not every little bit that I'm doing, of course, because I mean Sculptress is free and it's a very beginner-friendly program. There's a lot of features that this program has, and of course Sculptress does not. And like even something just to bring up like remeshing and stuff like that makes it a whole lot easier for me. But yeah, no, definitely you can do stuff very similar to this. Oh, so okay, you've tried both of them. I will tell you this. ZBrush has gotten a lot friendlier. Because ZBrush, in my opinion, for a while was kind of scary to work with. Which is a big reason why I kind of shied away from it and I stayed with Sculptress. But I think they've gotten way better. Just the menus aren't as terrifying. And everything that I've been learning has been through YouTube. Thankfully, people post a lot of tutorials. which is a big reason why I try to show people how I'm doing stuff, because a lot of this is learned from other people online that they've been nice enough to post it up. So I definitely wanted to do the same thing. Because the program's amazing. You just have to kind of know where the tools are and what they do. Because the menus here in the corner, there's a lot of stuff that you may not know what it means. I mean, a lot of it I'm not 100% sure what it does until I click on it. Because I don't use all of these. I use very few of these because I'm using it for very basic stuff that I'm doing. But it's a very powerful program. Okay. See, I used to use Maya when I studied 3D in school, but Maya's subscription is pretty pricey, especially if you're not doing it on a professional level and you just kind of want to sculpt for, well, before I was sculpting more for fun. Now I'm doing it more for work. Um, and I couldn't justify the couple $100 a month for a subscription. It's just like, it's like a car payment. So when ZBrush popped up, I was like, oh, well, I'll try it. And I had actually downloaded ZBrush Core over a year ago, and I bought it and I was like, oh my goodness, it's going to be so much fun. And I didn't watch any tutorials to begin with, and that was the biggest mistake I could have done. Definitely watch tutorials. I was so confused. I didn't know how to save stuff. I didn't know how to export things. I wasn't sure what anything meant, and how the menus worked, or even how to zoom in and like move around. Like you have to hold the thing over here and just like, move it around. So, or zoom in, zoom out. So it took some getting used to for sure. But I think if you jump into sculptures again, I got food all over my tablet. I was eating a little bread, a little pan de bono, and I made a giant mess. But definitely, if you are unsure about 3D, this is for anybody who's curious about it, just go ahead and download Sculptress. It's free. And you can make some pretty cool stuff with it. A lot of these lines, like I mentioned before, they're more for me, because certain seams go in these areas and it's just easier for me to see where to connect some points. And you want the nose to be raised up a little bit because the fur is going to be butted against it. So you don't want the fur to be too tall next to the nose, and then the nose ends up looking like an afterthought. So this area here I end up flattening a little bit. I give it a little bit of a ledge in the back. Doesn't have to be big, it's just a little bit. So that little ledge there, you can see it sticks out a bit. Use the move tool. And that way it's just slightly raised. Because that way the fur's gonna go here on top when it gets furred, and then it'll connect with the fur, with the nose, without it going over the nose and looking too thick. And I like big noses on suits. So that's why a lot of mine have these larger noses. I draw huge noses in my art too, so why not pass them to suits? And because the noses are modular on these, I can make different types. I'll have to move that sphere in there. It's starting to show through. Just gonna tuck it back in there. I want that smile line to be prominent. See, nice happy pupper. Just going in and flattening areas that I think would benefit from it. plate part of this cheek. Giving these upper cheek more of an angle. Okay. Making sure the upper muzzle wasn't too small. I also don't want to make it super heavy. Like the bottom jaw, I'm keeping it kind of small there, since fur always bulks them up. right, I think. Pretty happy with the way this looks. Move this down just a bit. So it still has a little bit of a ledge. Alright, okay. Think that's pretty good. I'm trying not to make the eyebrows like so big, but I do want a little bit more space. Because I have to think, well, a person's gonna wear this. So it always needs a little bit more space back here. Because the first one that I printed, I made it way too flush. And I had to add to it with clay. I haven't made the mold of it yet, but these are little things that I'm trying to avoid. Trying to make sure it's right from the printer and not having to alter it after. Cool, I like that. Sometimes I make this area so flat, I like to push it out a little bit more. Along with the eyebrows, so it's a little bit rounder. Just gives it a better look. And that is, yeah, that's a happy dog. Alright, let me save this. I usually save this a little bit different, but let's do a quick save first. I'll try to open another file. Yes. And then we are going to name this one Dog Sculpt. Cool. So it's right there. Go away. No. Alright, so we got that there. But now I gotta export it. We're going to open the file again. Let's give it a sec as it loads. So we're going to open the file. We're going to join all the layers together, and then I'm going to export it as an OBJ file. And once it's exported as an OBJ file, I'm going to take it into Mesh Mixer, and we're going to prepare it for printing. So it goes from ZBrush to Mesh Mixer and then to Cura. So I have to use those 3 programs, at least I have to use those 3 programs so I can get everything working correctly. There we go. One thing I learned after working on a project for hours and hours is to save. I had to learn that the hard way. Yep. Well, power cutoff, now I'm connected to a battery backup. Well, I have to connect it because it just arrived yesterday, but I have like my printers on battery backup. I have everything on battery backup, especially because one of these is a desktop, the other one's a laptop, so it's got like its double safety. But my desktop is the one running on all my 3D stuff, so yeah, I don't want to lose stuff because the lights went out. So we're gonna go in here, and we are going to merge these. The main head that was in parts is still there. See if I can delete that. There we go. So now we're going to grab all these and we're going to merge them. Yeah, I've learned that the hard way many times. It's usually because something has just, I didn't save it and the file got corrupted or something dumb. But yeah, I mean, unless I'm not saving constantly, then something can happen. And I tried to save multiple files. Sometimes it's like 3 or so files. And then that way I'm like super duper safe. Just in case if one does get corrupted. So I'm going to go into merge, and I have the skin, the main one there. And then I have one of the other spheres that's inside for the mouth, the nose, and then the eye area. So let's start merging down. So merge down. Okay, so this is, it's giving you a warning, you can't go back. Merge down. Okay, so now this whole thing is one piece, just one piece now. So we're going to export it as an OBJ file. So happy dog sculpt. And then we'll do mesh mixer so I can alter it from there. I'm going to put it in the desktop and do that. And then we'll just lower this. Come on. Okay. And then that is right there, but we're going to open Mesh Mixer. And this is where I check all my files. So I just grab the thing, dump it in there. And there it is. So I can immediately tell there's issues with this. And Mesh Mixer is really nice about telling you that because it goes right there's an issue, and there's more issues right there. So what we're going to do first is, because there's intersecting geometry in this thing, we want to make it into a solid object, and this is the easiest way to remove the intersecting geometry. Because remember, I had been intersecting this sphere and this sphere and that sphere and that sphere. So there's a bunch of spheres that made this whole thing before I kind of squished it all together. So Mesh Mixer allows you to do a bunch of things. So you can sculpt on it, you can put stamps on it, and then you can re-edit all this stuff. So we are going to make it a solid. Go ahead and turn into a solid. So, but it looks like doo-doo right now because it didn't keep a lot of this stuff very well. So what we're going to do is we're going to change it to sharp edge preserve, and then you can change all this stuff here. You can raise this as well. So let's say we raise it to solid accuracy. Let's do update. And if we like it, we'll keep it. There it is. So, because I raised it up and I kept the sharp edge preserve, it was totally fine with it and there's nothing wrong with it. So we're going to go accept. So now it has the OBJ that had the stuff that was all blended in together, so you can see it here. You don't want to print something that has a sphere and a sphere and a sphere and a sphere. I mean, it's a mess. This is not going to be your friend. So there would have been more spheres here, but remember I did remesh it when I was working on it so I could blend all the pieces together. But the sphere that I was using for the eyes, it's inside the head. The sphere that I'm using to kind of close the mouth but still keep the shape is in there, and so is the nose, like partially sticking in there. Your printer is going to hate you, so don't do this. So what I do is I delete that because I already created a new solid. And now I have this one, and this one is actually really friendly for printing. We're also going to inspect it. Usually when you turn it into a solid, usually there's no issue. So it's going to inspect it. It said inspect and repair mesh defects. It doesn't see anything, which means nothing is wrong with the mesh whatsoever, which is good. So this mesh is technically good to print. But I have this whole ball back here, and I don't want to print this ball back here because we only need part of the head. So we are going to do a plane cut, and this is neat. So you can cut this into multiple into multiple pieces. You can this way or that way, and then you can piece them all together in your printer. This is if you have a smaller printer, it's good to cut it. I have a big printer, but I want to print the thing even bigger, so I'd rather print half and half. So right here, see, as you can see, it's giving me a suggestion on, do you want to cut it there? Do you want to cut it here? Do you want to cut it there? So, oops, let me do it again because I clicked the button. Plane cut again. And then I'm going to move it wherever I want to cut this plane. So usually, I usually cut them about ish there. Probably give it a little bit. Yeah, a little bit more. Which means this whole bottom section is going to be gone. And it will clean this area up here. It sees all the little jaggedies. But you will cut and discard, and then you can either do remesh fill, and I do no fill, so it keeps the whole head empty. So you're going to do no fill, and you're going to discard that cut. You're going to go accept, and now the mesh is empty. See if I flip it. It's just nothingness inside. So right now, just imagine this is your bed. You could lay this completely flat on it without an issue. And this is usually how I get mine ready for print. But then I also like to cut this whole section that goes in here. So before I do that, I do like to make them a little bit thicker. So right now the thickness inside is, it's nothing. It's just like paper thin. So I found a way of doing this by using the extrude tool. So it doesn't really matter if you cut a bit of the side of the cheek. No, because I cast all these, and if the cheek needs to be built up a little bit in the back, I just add a little bit of foam. It's not a big deal because I'm always joining this to another piece of foam. So for my purposes, it doesn't matter if the cheek is cut off a little bit. I'd rather it be flat on my bed. It's just easier to work with and easier to cast, and it's less of a pain in general. That's why I do it this way. So Control A. We're going to Control A it, and then we are going to extrude. But we're going to extrude normals. So see how I made it a little bit fatter? That's good though, because that means now I have a little bit of skin. It's just hard to show you. See how I have this tiny bit of skin all around? I've created a layer that goes all around this thing. So now it's not paper thin. It helps it a lot because it makes my my prints really, really strong. Because the printer already adds the stuff it needs to add, but I just really want these to last me a while, and if I drop them, I don't want them to shatter. So I really like doing this extrude thing. Somebody said, use extrude, just, you know, move it around, do how much you want. I do like a little tiny amount. And I do the direction as normals. And if you've you've turned it into a solid, you made sure you don't have any issues, any errors whatsoever, the normal should be fine. Unless you have flipped normals or something weird, then the extrude's going to do some kooky stuff or just not work. But if your normals are facing the right way, and like I said, usually when you turn this whole thing into a solid, it works out just fine. So let's do accept, and there it is. This thing is pretty much ready to print. But I do an extra step, which is I cut this section out here in ZBrush. So I take this back to ZBrush. So I'm going to save this. We're going to export it as an OBJ. I'm going to do happy dog sculpt, and then remove chin. I mean, I renamed these, but this is just so I know which one it is. And then we'll do it on desktop. So we'll save it there, and then we're going to take it back into ZBrush. We'll just open up a random sphere. No. And then we are going to insert, actually import. Alright, see? So you can tell that this is now hollowed out. You can flip it around. So you could print this out like this and just, you know, wear it. So you can print hollow stuff that you can turn into actual masks. But see that it has a nice lip all around the outside. The other thing I do in here, because it's just cleaner for me, is I go in here and with the shift button, I kind of clean up this area a little bit because it doesn't have to have crazy details. And if I want to add more detail to the outside, which I definitely am going to on the mouth there, I will. You can kind of see the mesh here. This is what Mesh Mixer does. It actually does a really uniform mesh. It works out really well. The printer has had zero issues seeing this stuff. So you can go in here after Mesh Mixer has altered this. And I did it with the kimono. I went in and then I saw, well, I still want that smile line to be a little bit more defined. So we'll just go ahead and do that. These are just like little personal preferences. Like I'll go in and if I want to make some areas more pronounced, I do. It's really up to you. But Mesh Mixer is a free program, and I definitely recommend it if you are printing in 3D. Because it will save you the headache of printing something and there's something really, really wrong with it. So what we're going to do now is we are going to cut out an area for the chin. Actually, I might have done it backwards, but we'll see. So control activates the mask. Then you kind of draw where you want the mask to go. You're holding control down, and this masks everything you plan on removing. So that looks like a decent area to remove. So after that, you go to visibility. Actually, you go to, not visibility, you go to masking first, and then you do inverse. And then you go to visibility, and you go to hide PT, which is that. But it's all jaggedy and stuff, so we'll fix it. But it's only hidden, it's not erased yet. So then you go into geometry, and you go into modify topology, and you go to delete hidden. And now it is deleted, so now it's actually gone. And I think, yeah, I did do this one. This one I did it backwards. I should have not made the skin before I created before I cut this out. That's a little thing that I did backwards. So let's go back. Actually, let me see if I can just smooth it instead. So I think I can close the cracks and stuff in the other program. Oops. Yeah, definitely was the other way around, because you can create the new skin that way. So why don't we do it the right way? I was like, wait a second, I think I know what I'm doing wrong. Alright, let me do this again. Just open a sphere. Nope. See that. So we'll go back. We'll go back to this. And then we're not going to make the thickness for it just yet. The little wall. We're going to cut it instead. Let's go ahead. Discard cut. Not refill mesh. No fill. Accept. Yeah, that's hollow currently. And then we are going to save this. I'm going to export and then chin. Yes. So we're going to do the same thing we did with the other one, but without the extra lip all around it. We are going to import. Alright, and now it's thin. So see, when it's thin, it's like this. And you can't even see the inside. Which is fine, it just means it's super duper thin. So we'll cut this as well. So we'll do control, create a mask where we want to remove stuff. And you pick where you want this to go. I mean, you can make this bigger, you can make this smaller. And go back into... Let me close these because too many of these are open. Masking. and you do inverse because you want this to disappear. And then you go to visibility and you hide PT, so it's hide unmasked. And then now you got that chunky area right there, which is fine. It's okay. Hide visibility. And I'm just smoothing it a little bit. Yeah, definitely want to fix that. Because I don't like that little spiky bit right there. Go in, little buddy. But I'll fix that in the other program. Because I'll run another smooth thing over it. But see, right now the chin has been cut out. We're going to save it. I'm going to export it again. Move chin. Yes. Go back here. Back to mesh mixer. Let's close this. Don't save. Alright, so that is gone right there. See, so it's hollowed out. It shows you the little lines. What we can do is we can also do Control A, and then we can also smooth it a little bit. We don't want to smooth it a ton, because let's see, smoothing style. So see, that's a lot of smoothing. But actually, I'll smooth it after. We're going to extrude it, but we're going to extrude normals. Yep. Let's do that. And then I can still take it into the other program and then clean up these chunky bits if I want to. Which I usually do because it kind of looks bad. I'm going to accept. And now it has a wall. And we're going to export it. Save. Yes. I definitely want to change this lip a little bit now that I'm looking at it from this angle. I'm going to lower that a little bit. Alright. So this is how I prepare stuff for printing, and it's worked out fine. I've had no issue doing it this way. And there you have a sculpt that is ready to print. Went from ZBrush to Sculptress, I mean, to Sculptress, from ZBrush to Mesh Mixer, back to ZBrush, and then I'm going to be putting it in Cura, and I'll show you how it looks in Cura. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to export it as an OBJ as well, and then we're going to do the Move Chin one. Actually, we're going to name this one Happy Dog Ready. Ready print. Save that. I have to say that these streams are really helping me explain the step by step on how to use the software. Well, I'm glad. I'm trying to keep it pretty simple. So if anybody wants to try to do this, it's not like super duper scary, because at first I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm not saying these are like the correct ways of doing every single thing. It's just worked out for me, and I've had very few issues with it. So definitely you could do stuff like this. If you want things to fit your face perfectly, of course you can always get a 3D scan of your head and build there. And the other thing is Mesh Mixer. I didn't show you guys, but it does do it. You can measure things and make sure that you scale things to like a real life sized thing. So if you are doing, like, let's say a use your own eye head and you really need the eyes to be in very specific areas, same thing with the nose or the mouth, all this stuff, it's really important to have all these measurements correct. With the Toonie heads, I already know kind of where they are based on my printer, so you have a lot more give doing a lot of these Toonie heads than you do with a realistic or a use your own eye head. So this is why you didn't see me measuring all these little bits and pieces, because I know that this will fit my printer to a point, and ish in that area you're going to be able to see out of it, breathe out of it. It will fit you just fine, like no problem, because it's a Toonie carve. So I have a lot of eye space for you to be able to see out of, and a lot of like mouth space. So, and because these are casted in foam, I always carve out little extra areas that I might need a little bit extra space or whatever. But it's a lot easier if you're going to do something. Definitely try it in try doing a Toonie head first before you jump into something really realistic, because I think it makes your life less complicated, and you don't want to just die the first time that you do this. So I have this, I saved it. We're going to close this, and now we're going to open Cura. Wherever you went. There it is. So I have my profile loaded into my Cura, and it works perfect, and I just do a couple of changes, and then I figure out how long everything's going to take. I just need to tinker around, maybe do some sculpts, and then print out small and see how it does. Yeah, I printed a lot of stuff tiny first, so it wouldn't take a lot of time. So this is my printer. These are my settings. This is the stuff that I had before set up. I'll show you what I'm doing. So usually what I do with this, I'm not going to do all the process, but that's my printer. And grab that. I'm going to dump it in there. And there's, if I wanted to print it all together, I do it in here like this. But the thing is yeah, it works fine as a single print, but like let's say with my settings and that size with that brim, because this is a pretty big print, just out of curiosity, let's see how long it'll tell me. Because the thing that I do after, I forgot to show you, but I can always show you, is I do split my head in half. Like I split the print in half, and then that way it's a lot easier for my printer to just, you know, deal with half, and then I print the other half like right after that. So actually it's not too bad. I can print this whole thing in a day and 7 hours. It kind of gives you heads up right there on the bottom, and it tells you how much spool is going to use and all that. I mean, that's fantastic. But I want to print this way bigger, like way bigger. So I usually grab this thing and I rotate it, but when it's split in half, and I rotate it like about like that, and then I make it bigger. So I could just make this one bigger. I mean, I could just print this one as a full. And and this is the thing with this printer. So there's a brim because I said make a brim. So you see this little shadow. I can't go past this white, like the lighter gray, because then it's too big. So you can keep increasing it. And I know that this head, like I said, a certain size is big enough. I might just try this one, doing it as a one single thing. Because, see, so I'm trying to see, okay, I can still go bigger there. It's not going to touch it. The thing will turn gray when it's like, nah, it's too big. See, that's pretty big. And this print is going to take a lot longer because I am really increasing the size of this. So you can see I'm verging on almost touching it there. Because actually this will be big enough. I could go maybe a little bit. A little bit. I'm like really, really getting close right there. Maybe a little bit more. A little bit more. So I'm really kind of just pushing it. I guess a little bit more. Okay, I'm really pushing it there now. So you can see that right there. I'm like at the edge of the bed. Right there. I'm at the edge of the bed right there too. So let's see my that's the size of the printer, that's the size of the head. Take in mind this is a very large printer, so this is a large head, and it has to stay within this box because if not it'll be too big. So before I resized it, the printer said a day and like 17 hours or so. So I have a bunch of things changed in here, so it's a little bit faster for me. The layer height, I did it at the max amount that I could with my nozzle to 0.4. And then I altered a couple of these things here, like my wall line count. I changed to 2 instead of 3. And there's a couple of stuff in here, like the infill thickness is still big. I did zigzag. Infill density is only 5%. So there's a couple of things that have been changed so it's not as high. And it makes it a lot easier for me to print faster. Because remember, none of these things have to be like rock solid, like crazy strong, like I could run a car over them, just enough that I can make some, I can put silicone on it and make a cast. So, and the detail doesn't have to be insane because this is going to be a foam cast, which means detail is going to be lost a bit. So that's okay. That's fine. So we could get away with a one piece print if we wanted to try this. So let's slice it and see how nasty this will be with the settings that I currently have. And it just takes a second for it to do its thing. And then we can see the preview and how it wants to build this. So actually, it's not bad. So it's 2 days and 6 hours and 42 minutes. It will use a whole spool, a whole kilo spool, because a kilo spool is about 330 meters for the ones that I have. So I would definitely have to do a change of spool at pretty much close to the end, which is fine. I mean, I actually haven't done that yet, so that'll be cool. My printer will allow you to stop it and change the spool, which is good. So I will probably do this. Let me do the preview. It'll build up the layers so you can see it. It says it's scaled to 1,000 times like the original size. And this is showing you the supports on how this is going to work. That's how it's going to build all these supports. Because of the way that I set the supports up. See, this is how the printer will build it. You can see the process of this. So I'm actually going to do another change because it did zigzags. Support pattern is going to be lines. But there was infill pattern. I'm going to change it to lines as well. And we're going to reslice it and see if I can save myself a little bit of material. Cura is fantastic. It really, really is. It's made by the company Ultimaker. And I definitely suggest it if you haven't used it. I was using a different one before. I wasn't very happy with it. This one I just seem to have a lot more control doing all my prints. And it works with my printer, which is the Artillery Sidewinder X1. So definitely recommend. Oh, perfect. Actually, this is better. So this means I don't have to change the spool. It'll use 319, which means it'll use less than one spool because one spool is 330. And it's actually a little bit faster. So it's going to be, or maybe a little slightly slower, but still 2 days, 8 hours. It's not too bad. It's actually really good. The first print that I did took 6 days because I did not know how to change the settings. I thought, well, maybe I just have a really slow printer or something. I just actually didn't know what I was doing. So now that I do, this is exciting actually. So this is one thing to do as well. If you like the way this looks and you want to definitely keep this, make sure that you save your G code. And we're going to do just happy dog full. And then we will save that on our desktop. But you also want to save the Cura file. So you want to save it. So if you want to use it again, because G-code will not be read by Cura, you need to save it as its own like 3MF file. And that way I can go back to it and like just put it back in here and get ready to print. So yeah, so this is pretty much like everything I do, from sculpting to preparing it in Mesh Mixer to taking it back to ZBrush, cleaning up a couple of things, put it in Cura, saving it, trying to see how many days, how much spool amount I need. I know one spool is a certain amount, and that's why I try to keep it under that. And it's also big enough based on my print size, because my print bed's pretty big. If I go from here to here, this will still be about the same-ish size of one of the current foam casts that I have that I made out of clay. So yeah, this is actually really exciting that I could print one of these in full in 2 days. But I usually do split them in half. I did that with the Grumpy Dog, which is fine. So this one will be the first full head without having to split it, which is good. So definitely, if you have any questions, be sure to ask me. This actually worked out really well doing this in the morning. I'm actually going to get some lunch because I've been awake for a while and I am hungry. So thank you again for coming and watching. And I will try to continue doing streams like this when I can. If you guys, gals, and everybody else wants to ask about anything that I'm doing related to any of this 3D printing stuff, we do have a Telegram channel. I will repost it on Twitter. I posted it the other day where it's just called Furry Sculptors, and we're getting people in there to just kind of chit chat about 3D stuff. If not, we're also talking about it still because it's part of the stream on Foxbarks on my Telegram chat. So yeah, definitely join us and everything. Streaming suit stuff will probably kind of resume back after MFF, since right now it's just kind of like the mad dash to get everything done for MFF, which I'm actually heading back to work right now. I gotta eat, wash my car, head back to work, and work on suits. So it's kind of all over the place. I might do streaming of just me talking in front of the camera while working on suits, and if you want to keep me company, definitely come in and join. But thank you again. This was super fun, and hopefully you guys learned a little bit on how to do this. Hopefully it made sense and it wasn't just too distracting. But yeah, cool. So thank you again, and I will see you guys in the next stream. Bye.